Welcome back. Our next session is by Mr. Inderjeet Singh. He's the Chief Cybersecurity Officer at Vara Technology. In this role, he's instrumental in building the cybersecurity business unit for the group. He is working on the disruptive technologies in the cybersecurity space for securing IT networks, smart cities, and critical information infrastructure. In addition, he's member board of advisors, MIT International Business School, and Director General for Cybersecurity Association of India. He has been consistently been awarded while in Army and was awarded Magnificent CIO of the Year award in the year 2016 and Excellence Award by International Police Commission in the year 2019. 50 Innovative Leaders Award 2020 and Cybersecurity Leadership Award 2020. Mr. Inderjeet will be highlighting redeeming business and maintaining business continuity from cyber attack. Over to you, Mr. Inderjeet. Good morning and thank
Thanks.
you so much for
Yeah.
joining us.
Good morning, good evening, and good day to everyone, whosoever is joining from which part of the world. And thanks, CYBERX, and thanks, Pooja, for giving a very humble introduction about me. So I'll just share my screen. Yeah. So thanks. It's a real very interesting topic on talking of the business continuity during cyber attack and what we have primarily seen today. We are being hit by all the ransomware attacks, and it's always a challenge of the business continuity thereafter, because every time there's a cyber attack, it's not like it's a malware which has hit you or a ransomware which has hit you, and then thereafter there's nothing. You're back to the work. But that's not the case today, right? So business continuity has become a major topic for discussion as to how we really should do it, what should be the strategy behind it. And I'm going to be talking on the most hot topic as regards the ransomware itself. How do you really protect it? How do you recover from that? Because anytime whenever we're being hit by a ransomware attack, it may the business may get affected from 20 days to 60 days per se. That's the kind of damages which are there today. And we are seeing ransomware attacks all over the place, right? It's hardly any day when we don't see a cyber attack or a ransomware attack of very high magnitude, right? Whether it's your hospitals, whether it's your colleges, institutes, your critical information infrastructure, your IT networks, right? Your critical water plants which are there, everywhere you're being targeted by the cyber attack and the ransomware attack, and it's really growing. It's not really stopping anywhere. It's there for some time. And some of the major attacks which were there, which I like to highlight in this 2021 itself, and it got a lot of news. One was the ransomware attack on the cloning pipeline, where it was done by the dark side rival, and they took almost 4.4 million. And the damage was such that they had to stop the pipelines, right, from functioning. Right, though the attack was on the IT side, but then they had to stop to check on the damage control on the OT side also, and it was really a point of concern. Then they hit the JBS, that's a meat company, right? Meat supply company, one of the largest in South America and North America. And they almost managed to get 11 million out of that ransomware attack. And then was the Kaseya. Kaseya was where it touched upon almost 1,500 companies. Phenomenal. And just imagine, all companies were spread all across the world, and their businesses getting hampered. And they asked for $50,000 per company, amounting to almost $70 million. Nobody knows whether they paid or not paid, but then this is the kind of cyber attacks which are there. And every time when this cyber attacks happened, it was not a time when it was business as usual for these companies. It really took them time to recover, and most of them have not even fully recovered per se. They'll have some kind of challenges for days and days to come. So ransomware attack is pretty real. This is growing. There are almost 4,000 ransomware attacks per day. That amounts to 11 seconds a ransomware attack. Just see the magnitude, just see the intensity, what is happening, right? And there are 500% increase in ransomware hidden in SSL itself. And average payout also has increased. It's almost gone to $234,000. And US has seen the maximum. And just to give you a heads up on this, US government had to really intervene, and they've really intervened in the last couple of months, seeing the ransomware attacks hitting their country. More so, they had, had a point of discussion when they had, intergovernmental meeting between Biden and, Putin as one of the point of discussions, because most of the ransomware attacks do emerge from Russia and the CIS countries. So you can understand ransomware is catching, real attention. And why so? Because America was hit by a major attack. That was a solar wind attack that was on 11th of December 2020. I have not touched on that. It was really a bigger one. Then, the damages which are there, the data breach cost, which is really growing up because of the ransomware, what we are seeing. And anytime, whenever there's a ransomware attack, there's a dwell time of almost 13 days. And average downtime, there's only the average downtime I'm talking is 18 days. That means anytime you're being hit by a ransomware attack, your company really gets back on its foot again to do the business is 18 days. That's a challenge. This is average. And I've seen certain companies, going almost 60 days. And the ransomware attack is not just a piece of code which is just coming into your machine and doing havoc or encrypting your files. They are a combination of codes. They are a combination of ransomwares. They are a combination of the delivery models. And ransomware has become a business model altogether. And they are running a P&L. They have a marketing team, they have an affiliate team, they have a business team, there is a extortion team. Everything is there. So the ransomware is growing every day, and it's not good for us. We have to be really on our guards to safeguard. And when I'm showing you on the slide, each ransomware, in fact, has been a combination of different malwares in the ransomware. So they piggyback on each other to do a particular act of ransomware. So ransomware affiliates are growing in number. There are new affiliate programs which have come up. There are almost 15. So there are huge number of ransomwares today in the market. They are the ones who are causing damage to the network. And when you look on from a threat perspective, the complete story which I'm trying to tell you and join the dots together, the threat scenario is changing. The top threat actors are, really taking on. And there are top advisory groups which are there. And that's where the nation state actors come into play. So the data breach is on top. It's a very high, and that's a basic threat scenario, which is being, put up by the ransomware that takes the application hostage, right? And then you have the phishing as one of the major attack vector, followed by a malware, ransomware, botnet, exploit kit, DDoS attacks. So that's a combination of it. And what we are seeing is organized crime groups, right? Corporate espionage, your insider attacks. They are always the top advisory groups which are of point of concern. So how do you really, work on it? And when you look at the organization who have some bit of controls in place, and they have, already geared up for these kind of attacks, but then too, there are the challenges, because any company or organization, they have their policies, they have their regulations, they already have some bit of identity access management, role-based management, multi-factor authentication, data security, DLPs, EDRs, WAFs, endpoint security, network security. But just to tell you, while the ransomware thing is growing up, zero-day attacks are growing up, firewall, IPS, IDS are just mere routing devices anymore. They're not going to be protecting any of your networks. It's only when they're going to tell you when it has really happened, rather than preemptively protecting. And the reason is why. Because the attacks are more focused, they are quite advanced, they know what they're doing, and we see that IPS, IDS, antiviruses fall apart. Earlier, we were like pretty happy with the signature-based technologies, which was antivirus, which could protect your network. Unfortunately, with the growing technology, machine learning, which is coming up, which is being used by the malwares and the ransomwares, signature-based technologies are not sufficient anymore. It's anomaly based, because that's how we talk with zero-day vulnerability. There are no signatures. We don't identify them. We cannot identify them. Insider attack, the human factors are one major challenge which is always playing up in any cyber attack. We cannot take it off. And while I have told that there are so many number of devices which are already there in the network, they're all working in silos, and we always think that these point solutions will give us trigger as and when there's a cyber attack which happens. But there's always a challenge that none of them really react to those kind of zero-day attacks. How do you really work? Because that's why we are seeing so many ransomware attacks happening. And there's a constant emerging technology, and that's where we are seeing the attack vectors or the threat landscape has increased phenomenally. Whether it's your cloud, your mobility, we are seeing it growing. And one major aspect, which is a real point of concern today, is the lack of the real situation awareness, threat intelligence. And we always have a false sense of security amongst us. And that is why the business continuity becomes very important. And one thing very important to understand, that anytime whenever there's a cyber attack which happens, the time when the malware hits your network and the time when it is being detected, the window of opportunity or the identifying that malware is very short. It's only first 10 minutes where you have an opportunity to identify the initial attack to initial compromise. Otherwise, the initial compromise to discovery is almost months and days together, and that's a challenge. The malware can be there in your network for almost 240 days plus. You will not even come to know because it's lying dormant. And I told you that any malware which comes into your network is not just a malware, or a piece of code. It's a human being who's opening the command and control channel and acting on it. So what are the challenges which we face in combating the ransomware attacks? They are targeted. They use encrypted channels today. And also, for the exfiltration of data, they have started new tactics. They started opening up the DNS port to exfiltrate because they know that port 53 is always going to be open. And they are so, smart in a way that they are able to bypass the traditional inspection or the firewalls and the IPS and other devices which I told you. And all the ransomwares are being delivered through trusted applications. They're able to deceive the end user in downloading those applications or a phishing attack. And one thing which we have to remember, that between us and us being safe and being cyber attacked is only one click. If we are clicking on a malicious link, which is the phishing link, will land up into a cyber attack kind of scenario or a ransomware attack kind of scenario. And that's what has really happened always in recent past. So if you look at the ransomware attack life cycle, just as a preview for some of us who are attending the webinar, you may get a phishing mail and it will have a macro and it will tell you to click on the macro to activate that. Once you activate that macro, which has been given to you in a Word document, that's their favorite, a malware gets installed and your own domain controller, is being taken control of. They're able to steal the credentials thereafter, and what they do is, they're able to open a command and control channel. Okay, and that's where you have the tools where you can move laterally in the network and identify. So Cobalt Strike is one such tool which is being most commonly used by all the ransomware attack guys. And then thereafter, they primarily encrypt the data files. They leave the operating system files alone and encrypt only the data files, and they install the ransomware, right? And also thereafter, they post a note asking for the ransomware from the company. So that's how the complete attack life cycle takes place. And but what is more important, all companies to adhere to the MITRE attack framework, where it can really give them a secure environment to secure their network. And like there are different stages of a cyber kill chain, from reconnaissance to weaponization to delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control channel, and action of objectives. You can have the relevant security controls in place at each level and check whether your organization is really following those into the letter and spirit and implement it. Say, for example, for the reconnaissance itself, you have to have the policies and procedures, firewall, cyber awareness training, and these two stages of the cyber kill chain are the most important, because we don't know what is really happening on the attacker side. I don't know when he's going to do a reconnaissance on my network, and when he's weaponizing, because those weapons are targeted. It's only when the target starts, where he starts delivering that malware, I come into action. But this is the two areas, the two stages which are most important, and that's where the threat and vulnerability management, threat hunting, threat intelligence plays a major role for any organization today. And starting from the delivery phase to exploitation, installation, command and control, we have different security controls taking care at different level. And we should have those security controls, whether it's a web proxy, or secure gateways, or mobile device management. At the exploitation stage, have your EDRs, DLP, IDS, and similarly at each level, we are able to stop that attack from happening. And most importantly, the MITRE attack framework, it depends on the TTPs, that the techniques, and the procedures, right? So what are being used by the attacker, and that's where we really understand where his weakness would be and what are the vulnerabilities we have in the network. So this framework is very important to be implemented in the organizations to be safeguarding ourselves. So some of the mitigation strategies, which are very important for us, we should be able to mitigate software vulnerabilities that allow worms and attackers to enter or traverse an environment. And we should ensure the business continuity part, and that's what is very important. We should have the disaster recovery backups, disaster backup data, which is very important, so that we rapidly resume business operation after the destructive attack. One thing, again, which is important is your lateral movement and securing privilege access. So you should have the ability to mitigate that traverse movement, which is using impersonation and credential theft attacks. And you should try and reduce the attack surface of your networks and critical risk factors across all attack stages. How you can do it? You have to be prepared. You should be checking all your networks real time to ensure that there's a reduction in the attack surface. So some of the key recommendations which I propose to you people. So if you want to have a real quick win at ensuring your network security, you can follow the attack mitigation rabbit enablement techniques, where you are able to create a destruction resistant backups for critical systems and data. have a critical security updates for operating systems and browser and email system, isolate the computers that cannot be connected, cannot be updated and patched. So that's most important. The asset management today plays a major role. The shadow IT part, plays a major role. Implement advanced email and browser protection. Have a anti-malware and network defenses to get a real-time blocking responses from cloud. Implement unique local administrator passwords on the network on the system, and separate and protect privileged accounts. And for the less than 90 days, what should be a mitigation strategy, the long-term enablement? Validate your backups. And I will again and again say this point: the backups play a major role in safeguarding against a ransomware attack or recovering from the ransomware attack, and a major component of your business continuity plan. Discover and reduce your broad permissions on file repositories, and rapidly deploy all critical security updates. And accordingly, then you can have a next quarter and beyond, you can have some strategies which can play a major role, right? And what is important is focus on the prevention and recovery. And at the time, this is point number one and point number two. And if you go back, this is basically create destruction resistant backups of your critical systems and data, and validate your backups using standard restore procedures and tools. So if you're able to keep these things in mind, right, you're able to secure your network. So prevention and the recovery strategy for the mitigation is the most important. Otherwise, if you remember the case of WannaCry, where there are almost 60,000 computers which came down in just 60 minutes, right? And it's going to leave a kind of little time to detect and respond if you don't follow these kind of mitigation strategies. So you should remember these points which I brought it out, and I'm showing on the view file where immediately deploy critical operating system security updates, isolate computers that cannot be updated or patched, and asset management, ensure that. Rapidly deploy all critical security updates and stay current. And also, and the business continuity side, create malware resistant backup for critical systems and data. And also validate your backup using standard restore procedures and tools. And while you implement the lateral transversal and securing the privileged access, you can follow those procedures which I've already brought out in my earlier view file. And also, importantly, remember, reduce the attack surface. If you have large attack surface, you're susceptible to cyber attack. So disable unneeded legacy protocols, discover and reduce broad permissions on file repositories. So most important part you need to remember when you're doing it. Similarly, you can have the additional recommendations which are being followed by the company, where you ensure the outsourcing contracts and SLAs, move critical overloads to the SaaS and PaaS, validate your existing network controls, and more important, one thing which I will tell you, and this has been brought out by United States also and everywhere, zero trust architecture. Try and implement that into your network. That's the next level of security, to trust no one, whether it's your application, your user, your devices, your processes. Trust no one, right? Follow these processes and procedures to kind of have a speedy recovery and reducing the risk. So you can follow all these procedures for doing that. One thing, it's all about the survival of fittest. So follow the rule 1-10-60, where, like I told you, 1 minute is the time to detect, 10 minutes is the time to investigate, and 60 minutes is the time to remediate and contain. That's most important. And while we spoke of the cyber kill chain, the MITRE attack framework, from the initial access to the lateral movement, ensure that you have the kind of strategies which I already brought it out to keep a control on or keep a check on all this. So where it starts after the lateral movement, do the collection of data, exfiltration, and command and control. And that's where you follow the process, and it's all about the survival of fittest in today's environment and safeguard your network. And as a parting points, remember, all cybersecurity business control continuity plans should include four elements, which are very important. Identify critical assets and functions, encrypt sensitive data in transit, test your plan and response to ensure plan effectiveness, and train other business stakeholders in their responsibility during cyber attacks. So if you're following this, it will be pretty good, and you'll be able to safeguard your network. So there are number of risk-based frameworks which are already there for you. You can use them to design, measure, monitor the processes. Some of them are by the SANS, by NIST, ISF. Follow them, and use them in your organization to have a proper business continuity in case of any cyber attack. So with this, I've come to the end of the talk. So should you have any questions, I would like to take it online or offline. So it will be my pleasure to do that. Thank you very much. Over to you, Pooja.
Thank you, Inderjeet. Thank you so much for the great session. As of now, we do not have any questions coming in. But if we have any questions coming in, like you said, we will have it sent to you over your email so that you can answer them. Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the great session, Inderjeet, and thank you so much for taking out time as well for us. We'll keep in
My
touch with
pleasure.
you for our future events.
Sure enough. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll meet you in another. The next session will be a panel discussion at 11:35. Unfortunately, our next speaker, Advocate Puneet Bhasin, is not able to join us due to an emergency, the last-minute emergency. But then we will start our session at 11:35 with our panel discussion. So see you then. Thank you.